Well, hello, Freedom Seekers. I'm about 2 minutes late for going live tonight. I scheduled these videos a little earlier in the evening when I think it's a time that I'm going to be ready to go. And so when I scheduled it tonight, I knew I wouldn't be able to make 8 o'clock. That would be pushing it for me. I still had too many things to get done before that time. And so I thought about it. And I thought, well, by 8:10, I should be ready to go. But sure enough, I wasn't. And here I was 2 minutes late. So we're going to go ahead and just chat for a few minutes, and then we'll start on the topic. And the topic could be a new recipe for a liberated relationship. So a new recipe for a liberated relationship. We're going to talk about that, and kind of goes along with the things that I'm doing, which is, kind of a new recipe for making money. And I'm very excited about some of the things I'm doing, though. I mean, I'm so looking forward to continuing my progress into next year. And I'm just very excited about it. And this whole thing with this pandemic, COVID, a lot of people I know are hurting. And, and if you're not, let me just address, first of all, if you're not in that group of people that are hurting, I know, for instance, that we're certainly not hurting. My partner, Chris, in Seattle, that many of you have seen on the videos and so forth, she's not hurting. She's a remote worker now, and she actually just absolutely loves that. She had been asking her employer for a couple of years if she could be a work-at-home employee, and her employer just really was not open to that. And then, sure enough, now the whole company is work from home, and they are shutting down offices and not renewing leases because they found that this is working out so well for them, and so. And saving them a lot of money. In fact, the office, there was only 13 or 14 people working out of the office where she worked out of. It's a nationwide company, but this is one of the smallest offices in the country that they had there in Seattle, Washington. And so 13, 14 employees out of that office. But yet, just all the things that they needed to keep that office operating, not including the lease every month on the thing, but the janitorial services and the plant service and I don't even know what all was involved, but it cost them $3,000 a month. That's not even for the lease. And so right there for 13 employees, it's like, yeah, we'll stay home. Just give us an extra $400 or $500 a month on our paychecks. We'll be happy. and of course, my partner, Chris, she's not having to commute to work, and she's just loving that. And so anyway, and she gets to sleep in a little more too, And so a lot of great things that are happening as a result of this COVID. And, when a lot of times I hear people commenting, that, well, I'm just kind of hoping things will get back to normal. Well, we're never going back to where we were. And normal where we were is not really where we want to go. We want to keep moving forward. And isn't that like our relationships? Do you want to get back to a normal relationship, which for our society and culture would be a monogamous relationship? But whereas, as the co-founder of Non-Monogamous Lifestyle Association, I try to take and stay on top of the things going on in politics and society with non-monogamy. And I believe that by the end of this decade, that we're going to find that the whole area of ethically and consensually non-monogamous lives is a totally perfectly acceptable way of doing relationships. Remember how quickly it seemed that the whole LGBT community started to make great progress. And, and it took them a long time to get to the point when they started making progress. But then once they started making progress, it seemed like that, it was like less than 10 years went by, and they went from having to even, because everybody's in the closet and just everybody was just trying to, you know, get anybody that would be okay with them being gay or LGBT at all. And then suddenly it's like, well, that's a really cool thing, you know. Then, and who wants to go, you know, bashing people who are LGBT, and it became a very very socially acceptable scenario. Now, yes, there's still some people that don't go along with that, and there'll be people that have difficulties with their parents and with employers and with relatives. And I mean, there are too many people around that are like I used to be, which is just simply a religious idiot. You know, to put it quite truthfully, yeah, you know, I'm sorry to say that I was in that religious mind frame of that yeah, I was totally against anything, all of that, you know. And and look at me here today. But that just shows you how far I've come. And so let's go ahead and then jump on to tonight's topic, because this is kind of a good segue, you know, and that is a new recipe for a liberated relationship, or a new recipe for liberated relationships, you know. And have you ever tried making a new recipe? You know, when I was in Seattle, 4 months ago, that while I was there, because I was there for 2 months, and I came across a recipe, because I really try to eat a plant-based diet, an organic, whole food, plant-based diet. And I came across this recipe for an Alfredo sauce. Now, I love Alfredo sauce, but typically Alfredo sauce has butter and cream and stuff in it, and dairy stuff that I just don't eat anymore. I just don't think it's healthy. And so, you know, not that I eat 100% healthy, you know, but I try to take care of my body. And so I came across this recipe, and I looked at that and thought about it for about a week. And then I said to Chris, I think I want to make this recipe. And so I did. And the two biggest ingredients in the recipe was a white onion and cashews. Now, I understood the cashew part, and the cashews are high in fat. And when you basically put them in a blender, I've made, using cashews, I've made a delicious cheese sauce, and for macaroni and cheese, for instance. And so, you know, that cashews really can do some wonderful things you can do with cashews. And so this recipe, though, you know, called for like a whole onion, and that was it. But then strangely enough, it used some lemon juice, and the lemon juice neutralized the onion. And so the onion ended up, because you caramelize the onion in a pan and on the stove, and then you put some lemon juice in it, and you use some nutritional yeast, which gives us also a nice creaminess and cheese-like flavor. And then use some cashews, and you kind of put it all in a blender and blend it up, and makes this just absolutely delicious, creamy Alfredo sauce. I could not believe how good it was. But the first time that I made that recipe, it took me, I think, about an hour. You know, and, you know, got the recipe there. I mean, it was on the computer, so I brought my computer into the kitchen and making the recipe. And so then I made it a second time. And the second time I made it, I think I had it down to about 30 minutes the second time, if I remember right. And just, again, it really enjoyed that recipe. And so then when I got back here to Ventura, I told Kat about it. And because, you know, I think that she typically would be a fan of Alfredo sauce, but she's not going to do any dairy. And in fact, dairy is not, she kind of upsets her. I can eat just about anything and without upsetting my stomach. And I have an iron gut, but I just try to be good to myself and be healthy. You know, just because I can eat anything doesn't mean that I should eat anything, you know. And so I tried taking care of myself. So I got back here though, and I said to Kat that, you know, what I'd done in Seattle, and she said, yeah, let's try it. And so we went ahead and made it up here, and it turned out very nice. And then a week or so went by, and we said, hey, yeah, let's have some more of that. Let's do that again. And I mean, there's so many ways then you can serve that. You know, you can serve it with pasta, you can serve it with rice, and you can serve it with throw in some beans. You know, there's so many wonderful, delicious ways you can serve it. And so we went ahead and made up another batch. So I've made it now 4 times. And now I've got it down where I can make that recipe in 15 minutes, easily in 15 minutes. And it took me a whole hour the first time I made it. And so that's, you know, then where this whole idea, a new recipe for liberated relationships. And then, I don't know, maybe you're like I was. When I was 47 years old, and, not 47, 49 years old. 47 is when my wife and I started our process of opening our marriage and talking about it and all that. And it took us 2 years, and so it didn't happen until I was 49 years old. But there I was, 49 years old. Now, I had been out of the dating season since I got married, or actually, you know, because you don't date when you are engaged and stuff. And so I had been out of the whole dating scene since I was 20 years old. And so there I was now, 49 years old, 29 years later, and my wife and I, we opened our marriage, and she says, okay, go date, you know, go have fun. And it's like, okay, it's a scary place to be. And so same thing with when my wife and I went to start talking about having a liberated relationship, an open relationship, a non-monogamous relationship, you know. And we didn't know what we were talking about. We didn't know what it looked like. You know, in fact, she asked me, says, what does this look like? And in one of our conversations, and I said, well, I really don't know. Hadn't thought that far into it. I just knew that all the things that we had tried for over 25 years sexually to have a great sex life just wasn't working and wasn't satisfying. And it was being a problem for her. It was being a problem for me. And so it's like, we need to do something different. And in this case, something different meant that we should try non-monogamy. So one of the things that with this whole idea of a new recipe for liberated relationships is that I want you to also understand then, because like my wife and I, you know, we had that conversation then that we should just try something different than to instead of just keep trying monogamy, you know, and we should, because now I talk about, which I wasn't even on my radar to think about these things back when I was 49 years old, 13 years ago. But I talk about, you know, having an elf life. That's a life that is easy, that's liberated, and that's fun. And so I talk about that and enjoying an elf life. And an elf life then gives you more satisfaction and pleasure. And then I talk about, and I'll get into our diagram that I try to bring up every week, and sometimes every 2-3 weeks. But, you know, I talk about having more satisfaction and pleasure in your life. And because, I mean, why would you want less satisfaction and pleasure? Do you want to if you have kids, do you want, or kids or even grandkids, some of you have, do you want to go out there and tell them, okay, kids, have a less satisfaction, a life that has less satisfaction and less pleasure in it than what I have? Or can you imagine if your parents, you know, maybe you're fairly young, and can you imagine your parents sending you out there and saying, okay, I just sure hope you don't have as much satisfaction and pleasure that I've had in my life. You know, it sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? And so And so, yeah, it's the idea, like, I've been in business all my life. And when I go from one year to the next, it wasn't my goal to make less money. It wasn't my goal to hire fewer employees. It was always my goal to have more. And that's how I want for your life too. And here at Non-Monogamous Lifestyles Association, that's my nonprofit association, we really focus on helping you to have more sex with more people more often. But also, we don't just focus on sex, because your non-monogamous life is a whole life. And when you're in a relationship with people, they're not just in a relationship with your private parts. They're in a relationship with a whole person. And tonight we're talking about a new recipe for liberated relationships. And so again, your relationship is with a whole person. And so we talk about being a whole person. We talk about the three major parts. And the first part is your sex and relationships. And we kind of put that together. And then there's, out of these three major parts, there's a lot of little parts, that go off on. But your sex and relationships is one part, one area. And then another area is your work and your wealth. And then another area is your health and your wellness. And so, yeah, with all of those, there's a lot of little areas involved in them. But do you want less wealth? Do you want less work? No, I just want to sit around and be lazy all day. Get bored. Oh, yes, I want to be bored all day, every day for the rest of my life with nothing to do and nowhere to go and no one to see. And, it's fun for a couple of days, going out camping, laying around a campsite and those kinds of things. I love it for a couple of days. But after a while, I need something to do, something that's got some meaning to it. And so, do you want less work and wealth? Do you want less sex and less relationship? Do you want less health and wellness? Of course not. You want more. And so with having your satisfaction and pleasure, that's the same thing as that I want to have more satisfaction and pleasure in my life. And how I have more satisfaction and pleasure is by having more sex with more people more often. By having more relationships. And that's, the more relationships, that's friendships, that's professional relationships, that is lovers, that's more people to have casual sex with. So I want to have more relationships. I want to have more. I don't think I need any more work. I've got a lot of work that I'm managing and on my plate, and so I do good on that. And so I'll admit I want a little less work. Okay, and I'd find about 30 hours a week would be about right, because that would allow me time to have all the more sex that I want, and with more people more often. But and so about 30 hours a week of work would be about right for me. So that'd be a little less than what I'm working now. But yeah, I don't want to take and have less money because I'm having less work, which is then why I am transitioning my income to an online income. And that's every week I come here and we talk a little bit about that. But so, yeah, I don't want less income. I want less work, but I don't want less income. And so that's probably like many of you out there too, that you want to liberate yourself financially so that you can. Yes, you want to be able to take that and have meaningful work. Okay, let me just share. I've got a vision, because my passion and what motivates me is just doing great things for the non-monogamous community. And one of the things that I'd like to make, actually, I'm shooting right now for a couple $100,000 a month. because I want to go out there and I want to start a record label. And I'm not going to give away too many of my secrets here on this, but I want to start a major record label. Now, I've never been in the music business at all. And but that means that I probably have to hire people who really know what they're doing. But I imagine I can find in the record industry, in the music industry, I imagine I can find some non-monogamous people out there. But and so, yeah, I don't want to just kind of go into it, and have to go into it cheap, because I want to come out and I want to make a major impact on the culture that we have in the world, not just the United States, but in the world, because music changes culture. Not just one genre of music, not just like rock and roll or any one particular metal music or anything. I want all genres of music, and create a record label where we shift the music on our label to where it's, instead of, that, oh my gosh, you're the one that I've always wanted. I mean, I want to make sure that we're putting out non-monogamous music that is talking about being ethical and consensual, and we're not talking about then cheating. And so, yeah, I want to make a big change in our culture, and I think doing something great with music can do that. And so that's kind of like one of the things that's really on my long distance plate, And for that, I need about $200,000 a month to really do that right. And so I need to make that money first. And yeah, I'm not a big fan of borrowing a lot of money. That's probably one way to do it. But I'd like to go out there and just be making a bunch of money and be able to have that money to spend. Because that's the thing. I listened to an interview over the weekend. There was this guy, he's a billionaire. And he started out owning himself a grocery store. He's an older guy, I'm guessing in his late 70s. And he started out owning himself a grocery store. And he just kind of kept doing his thing. And he ended up being a billionaire. And now his kids running things. He has many kids, and they're all running various parts of his business and stuff, and he's still heavily in the grocery business. And so they were asking him, with this whole thing about going into COVID right now and the numbers increasing, what are the grocery chains looking like out there? The supply chains, and they're asking about that. But then they also, of course, they got into politics, and he said, I own grocery stores, and he says, I'm a billionaire. I can't eat any more food than I eat, and I can't have any food that's going to be any better than what I want to eat now. I can pretty well afford any kind of food that I want to eat. He says, and I just do not believe, whether whoever is in charge in the White House and in the Congress and in the Senate, I don't believe that the government can do a better job at spending my money than I can, or investing it than I can. I think I can create more jobs, more employment, and do more good for more people than the government. And that was a big shift that I took back there when Katrina hit Louisiana, and I saw, the government went in with all their money and everything, and oh my gosh, they made a mess out of that. And it was the nonprofit organizations that really went in there and did a lot of good. And so that's where a lot of rich people, they'd much rather put their money in the pockets of nonprofits and in the pockets of private companies and businesses and things like that. But these guys can't eat the stuff. You get it? I mean, they can't eat more. And they don't hide it under the bed. It's not a good place to put your money. They don't get a bulldozer and dig a big hole, put it in the ground. They have to put their money somewhere. And right now, he says, there's a whole lot of us rich people that are taking our money out of the country as fast as we can get it. And that's sad to hear. It is. And I understand it, though. And, they're concerned about changes that are going to be possibly happening. And so so subsequently they're taking their money out of overseas, out of the country. But so anyway, this idea, though, that having a new recipe for liberated relationships, when you go to make that recipe, it's going to take you some time and you're going to make some mistakes, like going back to that Alfredo sauce, I didn't make any mistakes. It just took me a lot of time. It took me 4 times as more time, longer than it takes me now to make it. And I suppose if I really need to make it in a pinch, I could probably pull it together in about 10 minutes instead of an hour, which is, 6 times more it took me in the beginning. And tonight we had biscuits for dinner, and I didn't cook. Kat cooked tonight. But I got this recipe and I showed it to her, and she goes, "Wow, that looks really good." Because I've been kind of hungry for buttermilk biscuits, but again, we don't do dairy anymore. And so what are we going to do for biscuits if we don't have buttermilk biscuits? And so I just thought, well, let me Google it, because, Google knows everything, right? And so I went and pulled up a recipe for, now I'm not a vegan, but the way I find my recipes that are all plant-based is I pull up recipes that I was putting like vegan buttermilk biscuits, and lovely recipes came up. And so this one that was from a particular person that we've done several of their recipes, and so she had a recipe for buttermilk biscuits, but they were vegan without any dairy in them. And so, yeah, let's try that, and so Kat made those tonight for the first time, and they were absolutely delicious. We had them with a little, like a meatless patty that was all plant vegetable based, that had spices in it that made it taste like sausage actually, and it had a really nice texture to it. And so we had biscuits and these patties, and it was really good. But it was something new and something different than what we have had before. And oftentimes then, when you're then thinking about your life and moving from monogamy into non-monogamy, it's time for a new recipe. And sometimes you have to create that recipe. I remember that Chris's family, they get together every year for holiday stuff, and they're not this year, fortunately, but they do a lot of holiday stuff together. And so one of the years that they all got together and baking cookies. And so again, being that was the first year I had switched to eating primarily organic plant-based food, and I says, wow, what am I going to do in making these cookies? And I love cookies, but I like to eat healthy cookies, and I don't like using, for instance, white, bleached flour. I like to use whole grain flour and organic whole grain flour. And so I went ahead and I pulled up 4 different recipes for peanut butter cookies online, and I ended up just taking a little bit from this recipe and a little bit from this recipe and bringing everything together, and said, I'll give that a try. And then because the idea with this little family gathering she had is that everybody was to bring all the ingredients so that you could make, I forget how many dozen cookies that everybody would make. And then, we would take and give a bunch of the cookies to charity. And then we would also, as family members, everybody would end up taking home a couple dozen cookies but a variety of different kinds. And so, and of course, we all ate cookies there that day too. and so then, yeah, I took and made my own recipe. And I simply took and looked up 4 or 5 different recipes, and then took and, asked myself, well, what does that ingredient do in that recipe? And then I created my own recipe. And so here the idea, a new recipe for liberated relationships. Sometimes it's good to create your own recipe. And I'm going to get back to that. But before I go any farther in that, I want to talk about, my day to day, because, I want to just bring this comparison again that even though I have enjoyed a wonderful, lovely 13 years of my ethical and consensual non-monogamous life, I absolutely love having more sex with more people more often. Believe me, I do. In fact, I've got a gal that I see weekly here, and she's coming over tomorrow. I saw her last week, had a lovely time, and I'm going to see her tomorrow and have a lovely time, and yeah, just really like that. But so where I'm in transition, because if you're not living a life like I'm living, then I want you to have that if that's what you want to have. Now, if that's not what you want to have, then I suggest to don't keep watching me. Go somewhere else, and that you're listening to the wrong guy. But go somewhere else. But if you really would like to live an elf life that's easy, liberated, and fun life, that is ethical and consensual non-monogamous, where you're having an abundance of satisfaction and pleasure with more sex, with more people, and more often, then yeah, keep tuning in here, because that's what I'm going to keep talking about. But how do you get from where you are to that life that you'd like to have? And we're going to be talking about that. But, that's where every day, I am not taking big jumps in, getting just this juicy sex life, because I have a lovely life. But what I need is a little less work and a little more money. And so how do I do that? And in the way that I started to do that was we have a process that I've created and developed. We use it in our coaching practice. Kat and I are certified and are trained and certified magnetic transformation coaches. And we help you to use the energy in your life, which magnetic energy is an important factor in your life. And we help you to use the energy in your life to transform your life so that you can live that liberated life. But there's a 3-step process of that. And the first step is to reframe. And that reframing part is what kind of goes on up here. And so I am right now in the process of reframing some things, because you see, I'm 63 years old and I didn't learn computer stuff. I don't take the computer stuff naturally, like, somebody that is 20, 10, 20, a 10-year-old can sit down at software and computer stuff and just be a whiz at it compared to what I can be. And it's not that 10-year-old is smarter than I am, just that they grew up in a different world, a different time, a different age than I grew up in. And so it takes me a little longer in order to sometimes make these transitions or transformations. And I'm working right now to transform my income and liberate myself financially. And I'm trying to transforming my income is transforming it from being where I'm trading time for dollars and I've got to be somewhere to make some money, to where then I am going to be able to have my income be online, and I can do it anywhere around the world where I've got an internet connection and work it out. So I've got passive income streams. And, yes, I want to make 200 grand a month. And I have a very clear plan on how to do that. But I want to pay myself 20 grand a month. And, and so you basically have 4 passive income streams. And each of those passive income streams gives me $5,000. And if you're not familiar with how to do that or anything, then send me an email. Click down there in the description box is my email address. Send me an email, and you got to take small steps, but you take small steps at a time, and I got a process that can really help you. But in fact, that's one of the things that I'm going to launch next year is I'm going to launch a club next year. It's the basically financial liberation club for ethical and consensual non-monogamous people. Because once you become sexually liberated and your relationships are liberated, then why don't you become financially liberated so that you have more money and you have less time having to be spent working, where you can actually then have a majority of your time for playing and having fun. As part of easy, liberated, and fun life. And so for me, I'm like leading the way on doing this and doing some things, a lot of things myself right now that are new. And so like today, I spent a good deal of the day, most of my day today, kind of struggling. But it's just struggling. It's new stuff, and I have on Friday, this coming Friday, that's the day after Thanksgiving. And this coming Friday, Kat and I are putting on 2 90-minute webinar training sessions. And we're doing one at 9 a.m. in the morning and one at 2 a.m. in the afternoon, so that, that way it's the same material we're going to cover in both sessions, sure, because they're live, that we're going to probably be doing them differently both sessions, but we're going to cover the same material. And so with that, though, we're going to be doing an online training, and I should have had, like 2 weeks ago, I should have had a registration page where people could start to go and online a website where you just basically put in your first name and your email. That's all we ask for. We're not asking for a credit card or anything. We're not asking for last names or city and your address and your birth date and the name of your first child or anything like that. Just ask you for a first name and an email address. And then you register for the webinar. And then that way, before the webinar, we send you a link where you click on that link that's in your email, and boom, we're right there live for 90 minutes for a program we put together, teaching you how to live an ethical and consensual actually, this doesn't even focus on non-monogamy. It focuses on just strictly on living an elf life. It's easy, liberated, and fun life. And then we primarily like to chat with a non-monogamous audience, but we know there's also a lot of people out there that live a monogamous life that we can reach out to. And this idea that if we don't hit them in the face with my non-monogamous life, talking about how great it is to have more sex with more people more often, they can come and chat with me on my YouTube channel for that. But in a lot of our coaching stuff we do, we're talking to people then that, live a pretty traditional life. But living that traditional life is what has got them into a life where it's not easy and it's not fun. And they work hard and they don't have the health they want. So when we talk about having more satisfaction and more pleasure in your life, and most of these people come right down to it, they'll admit it. Yeah, my sex life isn't the sex life that I want. And so we're able to make an impact on their life and help to start to open their life up and help to liberate them. And we talk about that, liberating yourself and your internal self, liberate yourself from that traditional life that's holding you back. And so we're going to be doing a training on Friday for that. And so I've been trying to get this website built. And this first time I've ever built a website. And it's just a really simple website, but you want it to look good. You want it to, and work good. And it looks really good right now. But the problem is that it's supposed to work where it looks good. That doesn't mean it works good. Okay, it's supposed to work where you put your first name in, and you put your email address on there, and you hit click, and then the second page pops up. And the second page is nothing more than saying, hey, thank you very much, but please go to your email right now, or we've just sent you an email, and you need to take and confirm. We want to make sure there's not some kids and people coming along just putting email addresses in there where people don't want to receive that email from us. And so go to your email address or your inbox and confirm that you want to get these emails from us, and you want to get the link for our webinar and stuff like that. And so that's what the second page is, just tells them that, to go and open up your email right now and confirm. Boy, I tell you what, that has kicked my butt today, and that I'm feeling like a little bit under, like I should have had this done at least a week ago, if not 2 weeks ago. But it's just, and so Friday is just a couple days away, and we're going to be kicking this thing off, and people haven't had any place to go and register it in yet. And so today then, I've really had to focus on trying to figure out how to make this all work. And so first time I've ever done this, and so it's been a little challenging for me, but it's like a new recipe. And then I've been telling Kat what I need to do is I need to build 4 websites, and this is going to be the first one, but I need to build 4 websites. So then 4 or 5 websites. And by the time I get 4 or 5 websites under my belt, then I'll kind of know what I'm doing and be more comfortable with it and be quicker and faster with it and stuff like that. And so it's just all part of learning a new recipe, and that's the thing with when I became non-monogamous after 29 years of being in a relationship where I hadn't dated for 29 years. It was like learning a new recipe. And over the years, I have had conversations with a lot of people, and people that are non-monogamous, and people who are just kind of putting their toes in the water, and people who are trying to make that shift and checking it out, and maybe they'll give it a try, and all kinds of conversations I've had with people. And one of the things that I found, though, is that people, when they kind of give it a try, then the first thing that comes up that doesn't necessarily work out for them, they say, oh, this doesn't work, and they stop giving it a try. And I mean, I know too many stories that was the situation, and a lot of times if it's a couple where there's then, to be honest with you, a lot of times it's the man where it doesn't work out for the man, because the wife, she's a woman, and it's a lot easier for her to go out and date and find men who are just like drooling over her than most guys are not finding women that are drooling over them. And so here the guy is, he's looking at all these guys that are drooling over his wife or his girlfriend or his partner, and he doesn't have any women drooling over him. And so sometimes those kinds of experiences, the guy then starts to want to pull back. But it's also been the opposite too, where I've, known situations where the woman went out there and had herself a wonderful, wonderful time. And in the meantime, her agreement with her and her husband, in this one case is very clear to me. Knew details very well. But her and her husband, they agreed that he would stay home for the next 6 months, taking care of the kids, so she could go out there and have herself the time of her life. And then after she got involved with doing things there like that, and then maybe he'd be able to have his time. So 6 months had gone by, and it was time for him to have his time. And by that time, she had this boyfriend, and they were hot and heavy at the beginning, but then she ended up breaking up with him. And so she was a little upset at him and decided that, no, that's just not for me. And then when her husband wanted to have his time, she goes, oh, no, you're not going to have your time, you know. And she just made it miserable for him, made it very difficult for him. And so that's then the kind of the idea of tonight's conversation with you is that a new recipe for liberated relationships. And this is a good segue for me to take you on over into my document that I'm going to share with you. And we're going to go and talk about then the homework, because I like to have a little bit of homework for you every week. And so let me go ahead and take you into the document that we try to see every week and take a look at. And here we are right here. And so we're going to go right to the top here. And we're just going to work our way down. Okay, this is the video report card. And yeah, it's about transitioning and thriving in an ethically and consensually non-monogamous life in order to create a life that you love the most. Having more sex with more people and more often, creating a magnetic elf life. That's easy, liberating, and fun. Now, the idea of the magnetic part is where you are actually pulling yourself like a magnet pulls you in a direction. You're pulling yourself in the direction of what increases your satisfaction and pleasure. And anything that would decrease your satisfaction and pleasure, like a magnet, you're pushing that out of your life. And so that's one, and this is part of really understanding your magnetic energy. But then we want to have a life that has more satisfaction and more pleasure. And a little test that we found that works really good is to ask yourself about things that come along. Is this increasing the satisfaction and pleasure in my life or not? And if it's not, that tells you that you're headed in the wrong direction. And so if it's increasing the satisfaction and pleasure in your life, that doesn't mean you're heading in the right direction either. Because, for instance, I could go out and start taking a lot of drugs, get high all the time, and say, yeah, man, it's really increasing my satisfaction and pleasure. You know, and yet it's going to damage my health and wreck my life and ruin my life in a short time. And so, you know, that's the thing with people who smoke pot daily now. You know, I just don't understand, because I get high on my life, and I get high on having more sex with more people more often. Oh my God. People say, well, you know, if you smoke this or take this and do this, it'll help you have better sex. It's an artificial way of stimulating yourself to have that better sex. And after a while, it just doesn't work out that way. I'm sorry, it really doesn't. And so anyway, you know, it alters your mood states, your emotions. It messes you up, even if it's just pot. After a while, it just messes you up. And so with that, then you want to take and have more satisfaction, more pleasure, but you want that satisfaction and pleasure to be something where it's giving you an increase in all the areas of your life. You know, more health and more wellness, not less health and less wellness. More health and more wellness, along with more love and relationships and sex, more work and wealth. And so we want to work in the direction of more in all of these things, and then be increasing your satisfaction and pleasure in all of those things. But if it's taken away from your satisfaction and pleasure, then yes, that's an indication that you kind of need to turn some things around and figure out, what do you need to turn around? And so, like we talked then about having more sex with more people more often. And the homework I have for you here is to think about the recipe for your life. You know, for the last couple of weeks, we talked about, you know, building trust in a relationship. And I gave homework assignments, you know, talking about, you know, trust, and then talked about values, and talked about a number of things to help you to put some building blocks together. And if you missed those videos, go back and watch the last 3 or 4 weeks of my Monday night videos. This is week 27. Watch week 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, and take a look at the things that you missed on those. And then that's where we kind of come up to this point where here we are. I mean, this is recipe week. Thanksgiving is Thursday, you know? And so why not take and create this week a recipe for yourself having more sex with more people more often? What does that look like? You know, what does that recipe include? Because there's a lot of ways that you can put a lot of different ingredients into that. I don't know if you've ever been on a website called FetLife, FetLife. In fact, I'll just type that in here. And let me get that in here. But you can get a free membership and you have full use. John, the guy who started it up in Vancouver, Canada, it's like the 26th largest social network site in the world now. And there are a couple thousand social networking sites out there, and it's the 26th largest. And I mean, it's a very popular site. But when I first went there to FetLife, it scared me because, I mean, here I'd been this good little Christian boy all my life, you know, and it scared me because there's all kinds of things that you can explore on that. And some things aren't going to be for you, but it's like going to a grocery store. You know, I mean, now I don't eat a lot of animal products. And so when I go to the grocery store, they've got a lot of animal products in the grocery store, but that doesn't mean I have to shut the door and not go in there. You know, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to get the things that I want. And so that's how you treat FetLife, is that you go in there and you get the things that you want. And that there are a lot of things in there that you'll want, but it's a great place to explore. And so when you're talking about creating a recipe for your life, you know, I'm not particularly into BDSM and causing marks on people, you know, like just taking a woman and making her black and blue and bruised up, and even going further than that, they have blood play, you know, where, you know, people that are into cutting and just all kinds of things that I'm not into. Now, on the other hand, as long as it's consenting between adults, then and it's not causing you like permanent damage in your health and all that, well, then fine, go ahead and do what you want. I'm all for it. I support that, even if it's not something that I'm into myself. Just like going into that grocery store, you know, they got a lot of meat and fish and dairy and eggs and stuff that comes from animals that, I'm sorry, but I'm just not going to be really into. But that doesn't mean that I don't think you should. No, that's your choice. It's your decision to make for your life, not me to make those decisions for you. And so these are decisions that are individual decisions. And that's what FetLife allows you to do, is it allows you to explore a lot of different individual decisions so you can find likes and dislikes. And you know, and the thing is that goes into that recipe today, in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years from now, it'll be totally different. And so, but your homework this week is to create your recipe. And create your recipe. Find out what kinds of things would be involved in that life. For me, it's creating an ethically and consensually non-monogamous tribe. And that's a bunch of people who are sexually liberated. They just love having sex together. And they create a tribe then where they enjoy having bareback sex because they pretty well all checked each other out and everything, and they know who to trust and who they can't trust, and the kind of people that really are the kind of people that you can have as really close friends and trust to be able to have bareback sex with, and to have a tribe of people around me like that. So where sex is abundant for everybody, having all the lovely, wonderful bareback sex that you want amongst your tribal members. And so, you know, that's something that is really rocks my boat. But for you, who knows what it'll be? And so this week, your homework then is to create your recipe. What does your ethical and consensual non-monogamous life look like? Does it allow you to take and fall in love with people, or does it put rules and limitations and restrictions and says, no, sex is okay, but love is not good, not right? Why? Is that because it threatens people's sense of security or their insecurity? Kat and I made a video about a week and a half ago about relationship rules. And that's where we talked about these things. And in fact, it was funny when I did a little search online today for a recipe for relationships. And what I got is, if you Google that, you get a lot of rules. People talking about the 9 rules for this relationship, or 9 rules, 7 rules, 4 rules, and it was just all about rules, establishing rules. And so again, I'd encourage you to go back and look at that video if you haven't watched it that Kat and I made about a week and a half ago about relationship rules. Because yes, when my wife and I, 13 years ago, when we started 15 years ago transitioning in our relationship, that we put a lot of rules in place. But that was not living a liberated life. It wasn't living a liberated sex life. It wasn't living a liberated relationship life, because we were too busy trying to protect where we are and where we were, our insecurities. When you argue for your limitations, guess what you get more of? You get your limitations. And it can hold you and keep you stuck right where you're at, instead of allowing you to move forward in your life and just flow forward into a really beautiful life. And so create your recipe this week. And spend some time doing this. I'm gotten to where I every week try to bring you a homework assignment, and I ask you to spend about a total of an hour on your homework assignment. And so look into some things online, and think about this area of sex and relationships. What does sex look like for you? What do relationships look like for you? How are you going to have more sex with more people more often? And what does that look like? Is it going to be that, like for me, I would love to be able to have 3 beautiful women in my bed every night. And for me, I want a range of ages. I mean, I've had girlfriends that are 18 and 19 years old, and I love the young women. People say, a man in your 60s, that's just wrong. Well, you can judge it all you want. But yeah, there's a lot of young women out there that really love older men. And I happen to love younger women, and I love older women as well. I mean, I've got older women that in fact, my girlfriend that I'll be seeing tomorrow, she won't tell me, but she's in her 70s, but she's a little petite gal, and she's in her 70s. And we have a really great time together. But so what does that recipe look like for you? And continue to just develop that, as I have for me. Is when my wife 15 years ago, well, actually about 14 years ago, when we finally started to move in the direction of transitioning our monogamous relationship into non-monogamy, she said, so what does this look like? And I was like, oh, I don't know. And so like when I made that cookie recipe a number of years ago, I went out and I looked at 4 or 5 different recipes, and I looked at the ingredients for those and pulled a little bit from this, a little bit from this, and ended up making a recipe. And it was a big hit. Everybody, all the family members loved my peanut butter cookies, even though they were actually very healthy peanut butter cookies. But they all loved them, and all the other cookies that were made weren't very healthy. Mine were healthy peanut butter cookies. And so, what then are the ingredients that's going to go into your ethical and consensual non-monogamous life? Take and do that assignment this week. So let's go ahead and get on to the report card on let me tell you again, then on February 27th, that's this coming Friday, then we're having this live event for people who can't attend it live. And that is, it's 3 big things that you can do to live a life that is an elf life, that's easy, liberated, and fun. And 3 big things that is going to help you to have more liberation, more ease, and more fun, and increase your satisfaction and pleasure in your life. And so we're going to be doing that then on Friday. But if you can't make it live, then we'll send you the recordings. And so you want to get registered. Yes, that means I'm still got to struggle with that registration page. So I'll tell you what we want you to do here tonight. Down there in the description box is my email not my email address. It is my the email list for Non-Monogamous Lifestyles Association. There's a link down there to get subscribed to the email list. Go ahead and subscribe to that list. And that's kind of a site that I'm trying to build now. I didn't build that site. And so I'm learning how to do a site like that for myself now. But go and subscribe to that email list. And I'll be sending out, if I can get this website working properly, then I'll send out a link to this website that I've built that allow you to register for the web classes that we're doing on Friday. If I somehow just cannot get this website to work for me, then we will email it out to everybody. It's just that I've got a lot of people on in my email list, and I really like to try to take and only send things out to some of my list if not everybody is interested in it. And so that's where this is not just all about non-monogamy. My list is all about non-monogamy, and this is not. And so I really try to just, I'll send out saying that, hey, we're doing this on Friday. Anybody want to register and sign up for it, then go here to do that. But so you can do that though, and get on that email list. And that way, whatever happens, just this week, be watching your emails then, and you'll get something from me maybe 1, 2, or 3 times this week. And that'll keep you on top of this. So you can attend on November 27th. That's this Friday, either at 9 o'clock Pacific time or at 2 o'clock Pacific time. If you can't attend live, then you'll get the recording, and so that you'll be able to see and watch it, because it will not be on my YouTube channel. And so you want to get that checked out. Okay, moving on. I'm going to just go right to the report card here. And the report card then, what were my bottlenecks, my breakthroughs, and my breakdowns? Well, I just wanted to report on one item, and I can't go into too much detail on this because this is really kind of a secret project. And so I don't want to spill too many beans, because this project is a project that can make me hundreds and thousands of dollars, like 6 or 7 figures. That's a lot of money. But the police out there right now, you know, I mean, I grew up in Seattle, and I still live in Seattle with my partner Chris, and I live here in Ventura, California with my partner Kat. And the police in Seattle are hurting, but like Portland and Detroit and Chicago and many cities, the police are just taking a beating, and there's a brotherhood of the police out there, and that brotherhood is that then when they're hurting, even if they're in a city like here in Ventura, the police here are hurting for those other police officers out there, men and women in blue. And so I'm going to be providing a lot of help, a lot of things to help the men and women in blue. And I just have got a really good heart for them, and something that's going to be good for them, and it'll be good for me in the coming years. It'll be kicking off here within the next month, and when it does kick off, I'll tell you more of the details. But you know, there's what I look up, 665,000 men and women in blue in the United States. Imagine that. Everybody that I've asked that question, how many people do you think are actually, you know, what we would call a cop? You know, not the detectives, not the people that work in the offices and all these other positions in law enforcement. There's a lot. I mean, there's about 2 million people in law enforcement in the United States. But just the men and women in blue is what I call them. the cops. There's like 665,000 cops in America. And so, that's a lot. And just 0.5% would be over 3,000 cops. And so that's my first goal, is to be able to help 3,000 cops. And or maybe a cop that's unemployed now, because there are cities like Seattle that are cutting their budgets because they says, oh yeah, we got to cut the police force and and reduce the police force and all this. And so anyway, there are people, the cops are hurt, and I want to help them. So then that was just been a really huge breakthrough for me this week. But pass and fail about last week's goals then. Get sign up webpage built for November 27th. Guess what? No, I failed at that. But it's okay. I'm still working on it, and it's going to be something where I'm learning a lot from it, and I'll continue to learn a lot from it. And I'll eventually get there, because I'm going to build 4 or 5 sites, I've got to build a site. I got to build 2 sites for my project that I'll be doing, working with the police force. And so I've got to build a couple different sites, and so I'll get this all figured out. But I give myself a fail in that I did not get it done this last week. Complete section 5, up to section 5 of my magnetic mind training, and I give myself a fail there. Spend 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, getting my computer shut down. I get to pat myself on the back. It was a big task. I had over 150. I didn't know how many tabs I had open. I had over 150 tabs open in Google Chrome. No wonder why my computer was complaining. I just kept opening tabs up. But the good news is I've been closing my computer down at least once every day since last week, the middle of last week, when I got that done. And my computer has been a happy computer since then. And so it makes me happy too, because when it's complaining, then I get really nervous. It's just part of the frustration. I'm trying to do these things like build that website, my gosh, no wonder why it added to my difficulty, and so it was my own fault, and I have to take responsibility for it. But I'm getting that turned around in my life so that I don't keep creating these problems with my computers, and that I can take good care of my computer just like I can take good care of my body. And so that's kind of what I got going on with my life now. What's going on then for this week? I've got 3 new things that I'm really working on this week. And so let's go on to there. Complete section 5 of my magnetic mind training. Since I failed on that last week, I'm going to reset that for this week. I'm editing a video for the affiliate program I'm working out. And that is the program that I'm working with the men and women in blue for the United States. And so there's a video that I've made, and it's going to become my Facebook ad video. And I don't know if I'll use it for YouTube yet or not, but I might use it for YouTube as well. And it will probably be also used for Google Ads. And so there's a video that I made, and the video itself is about 20 minutes long. But then I'll be editing that down. It'll end up being around 2.5 minutes, maybe even 2 minutes. And that when we made the video, took several cuts, many different, like, okay, let's do that part over, things like that. And so I'll be editing that video this week. It'll take me quite a while to edit that down and get it the way I want it. And so I want to get that done this week. And then, it may seem kind of silly to have as one of my goals for the week is to take some time off. But I'm setting that as a goal, you see, because if I don't set it as a goal, it won't happen. And for me, Thanksgiving weekend is Thanksgiving. The 4-day Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday of the year. I mean, I just love Thanksgiving holiday. The 4 days, not just the day that you go and, eat a lot of food and all that kind of stuff. But it's the 4 days that I love, the 4 days of Thanksgiving. And so there's a lot of things that I'm doing right now, and things that I'm very excited about. And I just dive into my work. It's like having that big pool of water, and there you are. You're kind of hot, and so you just dive your body into that big pool of water. And that's kind of how I am. I'm like really excited about the things that I'm doing, and I just dive in. But sometimes you got to get out of the pool. And so this week I need to take a little bit of time just to get out of the pool. And so I'm really hoping to go on a hike, in fact, this weekend. And that would be a really wonderful thing to do. And I don't know what all I'll do, but I want to take some time off so that I really do enjoy the weekend. And so I've got to set that as a goal. Yes, we're going to be doing these webinars on Friday, but I'll probably take all of Thanksgiving Day off. And I don't know what I'll do yet, because, we don't spend all day cooking like I used to do all the cooking for Thanksgiving dinner. And the years I was married and all that, I did the cooking, and I loved it. I loved making a 20 to 25 pound turkey and all the stuffing and gravy. Oh, I made wonderful, milk gravy and mashed potatoes and all the things that went with it. And so, yeah, I did a lot of cooking on Thanksgiving Day. And so now I eat a lot differently these days. And so I'm not going to be doing a lot of cooking. I don't know what I'm going to do on Thanksgiving Day. But I just want to make sure that I have a goal for myself to take some time off and I'm going to take the whole day off on Thanksgiving Day. On Friday, then I'll be doing those 2 webinars. And then on Saturday and Sunday, it probably will work a little bit sometime in there, but I don't want to I want to get out of the pool. And I think that it's, I need to do that. And so I'm going to get out of the pool, and I'll come back to you next week and let you know how that goes. So I've gone long here tonight, so I apologize for that, but thank you for being with me. And I hope that you'll do this homework assignment, where you'll create a recipe for your ethical and consensual non-monogamous life, a recipe of what the ingredients are and what it looks like for you to have more sex with more people more often. And so until next week, have a great Thanksgiving, and we'll talk to you again next Monday.